Hello everyone, it's time to learn our next cognitive distortion, emotional reasoning. Now, emotional reasoning is a thinking error that happens when we assume incorrectly that our emotional states reflect reality. Now, a really good example of this is my fear of flying. So it goes like this. I'm getting on a plane. I start to feel terrified that I'm going to fall out of the sky or that the wings are going to fall off. And so I assume that there really is danger. Now, we all know that millions of people fly every day and they don't all fall out of the sky. So I know that this is a thinking error that's making my life miserable every time I need to fly. Now, in order to understand how this works a little bit better, let's take a look at the brain processes that are included in making this thinking error. Now, this is a super duper oversimplification of your brain, but there are three different areas included. So let's take a look at all three of them. Now, the first part is the brainstem. That's this piece right here. Now, we share this same part of our brain with lower animals like reptiles. So it's sometimes called the reptilian brain. It's very instinctual, based on instincts. It's responsible for all of our autonomic systems. So it tells our heart to beat, it makes our lungs breathe, it is responsible for all of our drives like hunger, thirst, our sex drive. All of the self-maintenance drives are housed right there. It's very impulsive and animalistic. It is not based on logic or reason of any kind. The next part of our brain to evolve and to develop when we're being formed is the limbic brain, or the central part of our brain that is responsible for emotions. So we can call it our emotional brain. Now, this part stores our emotional memories for situations that have happened in the past. They get stored here so we know how we felt when we were faced with these situations before. It is the part of the brain that kind of offsets that animalistic drive of the brainstem, and it gives us a way to learn from our mistakes. So if we have engaged in something in the past and it was pleasurable and we liked it, we store that information here in the emotional part of our brain, and we're more likely to do it in the future. If we've experienced something and we didn't like it, then we are less likely to engage in it because we remember that it was a painful experience. The last part of our brain to develop, and evolutionarily speaking, the part that separates us from lower forms of life, is this, our neocortex. This is the part of the brain that develops last, and for humans, it isn't even fully developed until we're like 25 years old. So there's a lot of information that goes on, that processes through here. It's responsible for all of our higher order thinking. So logic and reason and our creative mind, all housed here. It also takes in all of our sensory information and integrates it so that we can make sense about what's going on in the world. Now, you might think, all right, it's great to be human. We have a neocortex, so we make better decisions than any other animal because we are so much smarter. Well, not so much, because studies have shown that repetitively, that the vast majority of our decision making, no matter how smart you are, is done right here in the limbic part of the brain. We make decisions based on emotions. Now, that doesn't mean that we're a slave to that. We can learn to make better decision and engage our neocortex, but for the most part, this is where our decisions are made. And I'll give you a little bit of an explanation as to why that is. So let's use my fear of flying. That information comes in from the world, and it has to pass through the brainstem first. All information does. It goes into the brainstem, and the brainstem says, hey, is there any immediate threat to Lori's survival right now? And if the answer is no, then it kicks it up into the limbic part of the brain. And the limbic part of the brain says, okay, we're getting on an airplane. There's no immediate threat, but last time I flew, what was my response? And all of a sudden, things start to fire because I was petrified the last time I flew. I'm sure, because it always happens. And if that emotional arousal is so strong, it never even gets, the information never even gets kicked up into the neocortex. It's hijacked right there in the limbic system. And so anybody giving me facts and figures about how safe it is to fly and how I'm in more danger when I drive my car and all of that stuff doesn't matter. I'm not listening to it because I'm responding with my emotional brain. Now, as has happened over the years, I have trained my brain to be able to take in the information about being fearful of flying, calm myself down so that I can engage in logic and reasoning, pay attention to those things that people are saying to me about the safety of flight. And that ability has allowed me to get on an airplane and fly for the last 20 years. So this situation, of course, doesn't only happen with flying. Lots of things trigger emotional brain. And especially in today's world of polarization, we are emotionally overcharged. So many things stop right there in the limbic brain because of the emotion that's attached to it. If I say things like anti-vaxxers or build that wall, or climate change. Some of you right now, your emotional brain is starting to kick in, and you want to know what I'm going to say about those things, because if I come at you and say that I believe something different than what you believe and that you are wrong, your brainstem is going to fire up and it is going to tell you that I am a threat to you. And because I'm a threat, you're going to respond to me as a threat. You're going to yell, you're going to push me away. And no matter how much logic and reason and information I can give you about any of those topics, you will not listen to me because you're not responding to me with your neocortex. You're responding to me with a lower brain. And we all do this. Now, one of the biggest problems with this is that this stuff, this information is not a secret. Lots of people know this. They know that if they put a trigger in front of the average human, that they can light up the emotional centers of our brain so that we do not engage logic and reason before we make a decision. So people like advertisers and marketing, the media, politicians, and just plain dirty, rotten scoundrels who want us to do something, they know exactly how to get us. Light up the brainstem, light up the emotional centers, and, these people won't even think. Now, it is true that much of our decision making happens in the emotional brain. But just like with my fear of flying, we can learn to kick it up into that neocortex. We do not have to be a slave to people who tell us to be fearful of other people or things. We do not have to blindly follow someone who gives us false information, because there is real information out there that we can find out for ourselves and make a decision. Now, it's important to know the emotional brain is important. We need all three parts of this brain for us to survive. We need them all. People with damage to the emotional centers of their brain are sometimes paralyzed not to be able to make a decision. So we need them all. But we have developed the most highly developed brain in the universe. We have to be good stewards of that. We must get better at using them. We all would do better to listen to other people's arguments, to withhold judgment, take a step back from that emotion so that we can listen to other people and why they think differently than we do. Now, it doesn't matter if we agree or disagree. Just by listening to their argument, we are all improving our neocortex. And we also have to remember that not all decisions are based solely on reason. There are lots of things, like every time I look at a menu when I'm going out to breakfast, it says eating raw or undercooked eggs could kill you or, make your arm fall off or something. Well, I still want my eggs sunny side up. And I know and believe that it could make me sick, but it isn't all about logic and reason. So, smokers, every pack you pick up says this can kill you, and you still make a choice to smoke. And it doesn't make you a bad person. All that means is that our decision making isn't all based on logic. So just using logic isn't going to work. We have to respond emotionally to each other as well if we're going to get anywhere. We have the most advanced brains. We just need to use them. All right, that's it for emotional reasoning. Next up, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it will be fascinating. So I hope to see you here next time.